Hi, kids. It's your Grandpa Uncle Roy here, relaxing after work, getting ready to play some old school WoW and tell you all about the last year and a half of my life and all my bariatric surgery shit that happened. So, I'm going to talk about a lot of shit. If I go over anything you want to ask about or you want to ask about anything I didn't cover, make sure you leave it down in the comments and I'll try to answer anything I can. Keep in mind, I'm not a medical professional. I just play one on TV. I don't even do that. So, take anything I say with a grain of salt. I won't give medical advice. I might, but if I do, check with a medical professional before following it. Don't listen to crazy shit people say on the internet. Even though I am a trusted grandpa and uncle, you still probably shouldn't just listen to whatever I say. Consult with your medical professional. So anyway, where to begin? Well, my whole life I've been overweight. The highest, I'm just under 6 feet tall, and the highest I ever got was about 450 pounds. So, roughly a year and a half ago, my work switched insurances to one where now bariatric surgery was covered under the insurance. So it was an option that I was able to proceed with. Before that, it wasn't covered, but Ozempic and those things were. So I tried that for a while, and it worked out really well while I was on it, because the big issue for me was something that I didn't really even know the name for until I went down this whole rabbit hole, which was food noise. So a lot of it's psychological, but also the your stomach produces a hunger hormone that makes you extra hungry, and that's part of what the surgery helps address. So have about a year and a half ago, like I said, I switched to another insurance. Insurance covered the surgery now, so I figured this isn't fixing itself, so I better take some action to, do something about my life. So I did. I went in the nearest big hospital complex with a good bariatric surgery program. I went and I set up an appointment to go consult. And they walked me through all my different options, said I would be a good candidate. Obviously, I wasn't at my maximum weight at the time. I was at about 420 pounds, so close. Still very, very much overweight. So I definitely was a good candidate for the surgery. The two main options that they presented me with were vertical sleeve gastrectomy, which is what I ended up having. And then the regular, like, full gastric bypass. So the gastric bypass, they disconnect both ends of your stomach, the incoming and the outgoing. Those are obviously the technical terms. I don't know off the top of my head what they're called, but they completely detach your stomach from the two ends, and they reconnect the two ends together, completely bypassing the stomach, except for like a tiny portion of it, I believe. I don't know exactly. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't, 100% know how this shit works. That's just my basic understanding. And that's not the surgery I got. That's my understanding from a year and a half ago. So I may be completely off. It may have changed since then. Who knows? As I said, consult your medical professional. So that's kind of the more extreme option, because you're left with, you're left with the least amount of space, and food passes through more quickly. I guess it takes less, you digest less, you absorb less, all that. So, but it's also riskier, higher risk, higher reward. Now, I was quite overweight, but not, they've got TV shows, My 600-Pound Life, and up from there, right? So I wasn't that heavy, I was quite overweight, but not like so extremely so that I needed the most extreme option. So I ended up going with the other one, and my doctor kind of agreed with me, said that would be a good option, the vertical sleeve gastrectomy. So what happens with that one is they don't disconnect anything on either end of your stomach. Your stomach is kind of banana shaped, but it's like a thick banana. So what they do with this procedure is they cut vertically and make your thick banana stomach a thinner banana stomach. So it still retains the same shape, but they remove about 80% of the volume, the capacity. So going forward then with your life, you can't eat nearly as much. It's not, capacity I think is still greater than the other option, but it's still very small. Coming out the other end of the surgery, you're limited at first to like a couple of ounces is all you can tolerate right off the bat. So still, relatively extreme as far as things go, removing a significant portion of one of your internal organs. Not completely without risk, but not as risky as the other option. So that's what I went with. This was about June last year, 2024. And it's a long road. So I'm kind of going in here today to, let you know what you're in for. And let me even preface that, though, by saying my only regret, as a lot of people I've heard their only regret about this entire journey, is having not done it sooner. And like I said, I switched insurances is the reason I was able to do it. So I really wasn't able to do it sooner because I would have had to pay completely for it, and I wouldn't have been able to do that. So, but no other regrets. And for me, everything went smoothly. So I can say that that's my only regret. If had things gone differently, I may have had other regrets. But this is my experience, so this really all I can tell you. But it is a long process because it was about June 2024 when I went in for my initial consultation. My surgery didn't happen until December 19th, 2024. So coming up on a year now, but it was a good 6 months from initial consultation until the actual surgery. Because they put you through a lot to make sure that the surgery is going to be as successful as possible. Because it's not just about the physiological aspect. A lot of it is mental. Not just like psychological even, but also knowledge-wise. You have to meet with a dietitian a lot to make sure that you understand your food choices and why you eat the way you do and all this other type of stuff. But then psychological is the other big aspect. So I had a lot of doctor's appointments between June and December of last year to set me up for success with this whole program. The three main types of appointments: one with the actual surgical team, the doctor and the nurses and the anesthesiologists and all the different people who were going to be participating in the surgery itself to prepare me for what was to come. Make sure I knew everything about it and was able to make good choices. And then many appointments with the psychiatrist, I don't remember which one, psychiatrist, I think, to address, any issues that may have prevented this from being a success. And I certainly have many psychological issues. And that is another aspect of, I think, what made this work so well for me is after the surgery, so beginning of this year, February, March, somewhere around there, I started Spravato treatments, the esketamine for treatment-resistant depression, because I've had depression my whole life. I've tried all the different antidepressants, SSRIs, all that stuff. Nothing's ever really done much. But Spravato now has done a lot. And that is, I credit that as much with the success in weight loss as the surgery, because they really complemented each other so well. You can have the surgery, but a lot of people gain all the weight back because of psychological issues, I'm guessing, in a lot of the cases. But addressing that aspect at the same time as the hunger, the food noise, and the physiological issues really set me up for success the most. But back to the surgery, the third aspect then was meeting with the dietitian a lot, to make sure I understood, how I was going to have to adjust my eating habits for the rest of my life to maintain. Because yes, the surgery prevents you from eating such a high volume of food, but after time, you do regain some of that capacity, not all of it, but you can go back to eating a decent amount of food. I'm almost a year out now, and I still get full much quicker than I used to. I can't tolerate nearly as much food as I used to be able to, but I am back to a somewhat normal capacity. Like I can eat a fairly regular meal, not as large as a normal person. That's hard to say even because what's normal, but still probably smaller than an average person, but not by much. But it's easy to regain the weight if, instead of eating normal meals, you go out and all that capacity, you're just stuffing in a giant chocolate cake or something like that for every meal. So, you have to use the first few months after surgery where you can't eat almost anything to develop good habits that will last for the rest of your life. So that was the last important type of doctor visit that I had leading up to the surgery. And I had 5+ of 3 or 4 of each of those in the months leading up to the surgery to make sure that I was fully prepared. So if you're thinking about it, do it definitely if it makes sense for you. Again, if your doctor recommends it and thinks it's a good choice for you and you think it's a good choice for you, go ahead and do it. Just make sure you know what you're committing to and what you're signing up for, and be sure that you're in a good headspace for it and you're going to be able to handle it, so you don't just revert later on down the line, because this is a life-altering change that's going to be with you for the rest of your life. So you want to make sure that you get the most out of it, right? So 6 months of doctor's appointments, all that. Leading into the surgery, you set up the appointment, you have all the information. They put you on a 2-week diet pre-surgery, going right into the surgery. You can't eat anything for 2 weeks, no solid food. You drink all your calorie intake for that 2 weeks is 4 to 5 protein shakes a day. And that's it. No solid foods, though I did cheat a little bit. Don't tell on me, but at one point I did eat an entire jar of pickles. But it was fine. My doctor said everything was fine. The reason they do that, they put you on that diet leading into the surgery, is because pretty much everyone who's overweight, especially to the extent that I was, or to the extent that they need bariatric surgery, they have fatty liver. So their liver is much larger than it should be, and your liver sits right on top of your stomach. So if you're having a surgery where your doctor needs to go in and make significant alterations to your stomach, it's not great to have a big fatty liver, sitting right on top of it and obstructing everything. So the point of that 2-week pre-surgery diet is to shrink your liver. And also, I would assume a little bit, at least, to kind of get you adjusted for what you're going to be in for. This was, I think, worse than anything I encountered post-surgery. That 2 weeks is rough. So make sure you're ready for that. And like I said, I cheated a bit. Try not to cheat. Obviously, it's not the end of the world. Like I said, I ate a jar of pickles because I had to have something. 4 to 5 protein shakes a day and nothing, and tons of water, obviously. But that's it for 2 weeks. As someone, who was at one point 450 pounds, eating McDonald's all the time, pizza, all kinds of junk, 2 weeks is a long time to not eat anything. But with that cheating, it was just the one thing, so it didn't come out too bad. I still lost between 15 and 20 pounds in that 2 weeks, which is what they expect. And my liver did shrink significantly, to the point that my doctor said afterwards that she was very pleased with the size of my liver in the surgery, and everything went smoothly. So it went well.
Can't carry anymore.
And then the type of surgery itself, laparoscopic, which is great. I've only had 2 surgeries in my life, and both of them have been laparoscopic, and the recovery time, I was only in the hospital overnight for both of them. So, if you have the option, that's the way to go. Because what it entails is, instead of just making one big incision and, going in from the front and doing everything in that one incision, they make 5 very small incisions, and they place several small cameras in strategic locations around your insides, and then they go in with robot arms and tools and all that. And they do everything like microscopically through robots that way. So the healing time is much faster. Like I said, I was only in the hospital overnight, went home the next day. Very little pain. I think the entire prescription they gave me, I take like 2 pain pills over the next day or 2, and that was it. So it's great. If you have the option, laparoscopic surgery is the way to go. Surgery went smooth. I don't remember. It was like a couple of hours. Wake up, everything's fine. The biggest struggle in the day or 2 post-surgery isn't pain or anything like that. It's drinking. So with your new tiny capacity stomach, it at the beginning it can barely handle anything. So I'm used to any liquids, water, soda, whatever, for my whole life. I could chug, a ton of it. Especially when you're really thirsty and you get a tall, cool glass of ice water and you can just chug the whole thing. It's great. Right after surgery, your sips are like 2 to 3 milliliters, which is just an incredibly tiny amount. It's like drops. And it's incredibly frustrating if you get thirsty to have to satiate yourself with just that tiny little few drops of water
Greetings.
every 2 to 3 minutes. And that's what you have to do for the first few days after surgery is every 2 to 3 minutes, pretty much all day, every day, you have to take a tiny little sip of water because you still have to get, 60 to 80 ounces of water throughout the day, something like that. So that part is incredibly rough and, as I said, frustrating. But that's probably the biggest challenge. Everything else was fairly smooth. For the first 2 weeks post-surgery, your diet is entirely puree, nothing solid, because your stomach just can't handle it. Like I said, immediately following surgery, your stomach can barely handle a few drops of water. After, let's see, I didn't eat anything the same day. I don't think the next morning breakfast was probably the first thing I ate. And it was like pureed scrambled eggs and pureed chicken, maybe, and some kind of yogurt. And the yogurt was by far the best part. The hospital pureed scrambled eggs and chicken was nothing to write home about. But yeah, that is the thirst thing clears up after a few days, so that's actually not too bad. It's terrible for a day or two, but within a few days, you're able to still not like chug or gulp down a ton, but take fairly normal sized drinks of your water at that point. So it doesn't last too long. So 2 weeks of puree, and then after that, another 2 weeks, this time with like diced or minced, like cut up really small. And all of this is strictly protein only. So, chicken, eggs, tuna, turkey, stuff like that. That's all you can have for the first month and a half. Yeah. And it's like 2 to 4 ounces per meal. Because remember, your capacity is tiny now. You can't handle anything. So 2 or 3 ounces of protein per meal, 3 times a day, and tons of water. That's your life for the first month post-surgery. And lucky for me, I really like chicken breast. Because I was able to fairly easily live on chicken breast mostly, with some eggs here and there, and some other meats thrown in for variety. But chicken breast and lots and lots of spices and seasonings, because otherwise I would have been absolutely bored out of my mind with that bland chicken breast. But you doctor it up, do what you got to do, and choke it down for a couple of weeks. And then after that, it starts normalizing a little bit, but you still have to prioritize. You still have to make good choices, and this is where the Spravato treatments really kicked in for me. Is that really addressed the psychological aspect of my food noise and my issues with food in general. Without that, I may not have been anywhere near as successful as I have been. So I said going into this whole process, I was about 420 pounds, and I lost 15 to 20 on the pre-surgery diet. So say I came out of the surgery at about 400 pounds, maybe slightly under. Right now, I'm about 280. So in the 10 months since my surgery, I've lost 120 pounds. So that's what they projected for me to lose in the entire first year. So I take that as a pretty good success, and I'm still losing the 2 pounds a week that you're supposed to lose in a normal diet. So I'm going to keep going from here till I get down, hopefully to, a normal weight. Goal for me for about 6 feet tall would be about 180. So I'm thinking some of that at least I'm gonna have to end up having the loose skin removal surgery. So that's gonna be some of that, but otherwise I'm still a good 100 pounds over where I need to be. So I've still got a ways to go, but it's not bad. For the most part, I'm able to eat whatever I want, just much less of it. And I don't have the desire to eat as much of the terrible things that I used to eat, right? I used to have McDonald's all the time, several times a week. In the last couple months, I've had it once or twice. And going in, I thought I would miss it terribly, or, I thought it would be so different I would never be able to adjust. And that again, it probably is where the mental health issues, Spravato helped with all of that. Fixing your relationship with food. So you're not, prioritizing it over everything else in your life. Right. So, I realize now I don't have to have McDonald's a few times a week. I don't have to have pizza a few times a week or whatever. Every time I go for a meal, I don't have to have, 5 different things so I'm not missing out on anything. Food is just an energy source. It's not what I need to work towards.
Hello.
It's just a tool like anything else. So that's a big part of the whole thing, is fixing your relationship with food. That helps you be successful with your weight loss. But if you're considering it and it's an option for you, definitely go for it. Like I said, my only regret was not having it done sooner. Because I might be done. I might be down to a normal weight already by now. But even so, I'm within a year, so not too bad. I think that's about it. I probably glossed over and missed a whole bunch of stuff. But, if you're watching this, leave any questions, comments, whatever else you might have to say down in the comments, and I'll respond. Or I won't. Who knows?